Stuart, Mr. Koford, it's a pleasure to be here. It really is because it's your brand, your logo has been in my mind since I was 12 years old or 13 because I've been acquiring your products and trying to get speed.
Yeah.
So that's very it's honestly it's just like I took a couple of pictures of the front of the building and sent to my friends in Brazil and they're just like, whoa, what are you doing there? Because you're not in a central area of the country, so I think it's pretty hard for people to come here and visit you, right?
Uh, they manage. So,
They managed to come.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about your company, but I also want to talk about a little bit about you. I know that you've been around doing slot cars since the 70s, probably.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me a little bit more? How did you start it, and when did you decide to start to make slot car products?
Well, I started racing slot cars as a kid in Southern California. I was born in North Hollywood, and though I did spend a couple years in Brazil, Recife, when I was a little kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Recife.
Recife, yeah.
That's nice. Did you catch any Portuguese?
A
A little bit.
little bit, but then I took Spanish in grade school, and
Then
it
mix it up.
erased all the Portuguese.
Good. So you were a kid living there?
Yeah.
Your
And,
father was working there, and you went with the family. What happened?
Well, he was a geologist, and he was working for Petrobras, and they're flying him out on a seaplane onto the Amazon, and he was doing core samples and looking for places to drill for oil.
Very
So
nice.
he did that for a few years, and then came back to the U.S. And
That's very cool.
I lived in Santa Monica. And as far as making stuff, when I was in high school, I was rewinding, Mabuchi motors and
Who wasn't? Right?
scratch building frames and whatever. And as far as commercial product, I started that right after I was a senior in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it part-time while I was in engineering school. And after I graduated, I worked for Motorola as a senior engineer. And then I was an engineering manager with another company. And then I decided to go full-time. So I've been full-time since about 1978
Mm-hmm.
with
with
making motors. Yeah.
Making motors, okay.
Yeah. And initially, briefly, just slot car motors, and then NASA came calling, so I started making motors for them. And now it's about 15% slot cars, and the rest is surgical tool motors and drone motors for.
So all the work that you
Big
do
drones.
here is involving motors that
Yeah,
kind of
motors and electronics.
that kind of started with slot car motors.
Yes, it did. Yes,
So
it did.
I remember back in the 90s, we have the very first wing car with we used to call the micro motor,
Yeah.
and the rumor was, oh, this is from NASA. And I was like, sure, this is a slot car motor. So it's true. It's true.
Well, it's not from NASA, but definitely we were doing business and still do business.
So
with
it's the
NASA.
other way around. NASA's
Yeah.
taking advantage of the slot car people. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And so in '78, you decided to go full time and just let's start to do slot car motors. And you have a
Right.
big boom in the '80s and the early '90s. It was kind of popular.
No, it was huge, but yeah, I mean, it was pretty crazy actually. I think our lead time for orders was over a year at one point.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I remember doing Group 20. And
Yeah.
I remember that we have like super free rules back in Brazil, so we can pick it up a can and try to open and make it lighter and glue the magnets and hone the magnets on. And I used to do all that. And it was kind of when my father used to have a raceway, so I was
Yeah.
the one working on the motors. And everything that was Koford, say, okay, this is the one to go.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So Northern California, if you live there in the 70s or late 60s, you got a big boom over there because that's the place where the Raceways culture kind of started.
Yeah.
Were you just racing? What were you doing that back then? You have like little box and going to places?
Yeah.
Which,
There was a ton of raceways in Southern California at the time.
yeah,
Yes.
it kind of started in the valley
Yeah.
where you were living, so that's kind of a good
Yeah.
mixture. Do you remember the name of the raceway that you used to
Oh
go?
gosh, I don't know. There was one in San Bernardino, which is the time I started racing. I lived in a place called Mount Baldy,
Okay.
which is in the mountains near Upland. So, San Bernardino was a 40-minute drive, but
Mm-hmm.
they had a whole bunch of tracks, and so I mean there was tracks everywhere, but yeah, it's not quite that way anymore, I'm afraid.
Remember.
But
So when
it seems that if it doesn't involve a cell phone, then
yeah, that's
people aren't doing it so much.
yeah,
That's a shame, but
yeah,
it's not just slot cars, but really anything that doesn't involve a screen, is
yeah.
not as big as it was
Do you
back
feel
then.
optimistic about the future of slot cars, or
Yeah, I think it'll hang around, and there's people who like to do things with their hands, like to
Mhm.
create things.
Still has value, right?
To compete. It's a little bit expensive to buy a Formula One car. You need a few $100 million or whatever. But so this is a little more
the model race?
approachable.
The model race still goes on, right?
Yeah.
How do you see? How did you react for the change that we had 10 years ago or so when the Chinese motors came in and people started to adopt that into slot cars?
It didn't affect us at all because we're not at the low level. You see the Hawk motors and things like that, and
Yeah.
Pro Slot has their equivalent, and we make some armatures that fit those, but it's not. Our primary business is
Pro racing.
Group 7, Group 27, wing car racing, things like that.
Yeah, and that group never changed, right? They always have
Yeah.
their people, and
Yeah.
most of those customers are not even here in the West, right?
By the West, you mean the U.S. or whatever?
Yeah,
or?
U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of customers. Though, we have like I was just at the Slotcar Nats, U.S. Slotcar Nats, and most of the people there were American, but there are some Australians. There was Gugu came from Brazil.
Yeah.
So
every time
we don't see the Czechs as much as we used to, but they lost their track there, I guess. So
yeah. How every time that somebody mentions Gugu, they have a story with Gugu, which is your story with Gugu? Is there a story to tell? Yesterday I was with Kim at IEH, and she told me the worst story about Gugu that I don't even can mention that.
No, I mean he's a great racer, and first he was racing for us, and then he was a distributor for us, and then he was making his own products. But we sold him our old end bell mold for Group 12, and he's got a different one now, but that's how he started out, was with our old mold. And so he's got his raceway and makes products and does everything. So
yeah. So what about your raceway? I remember that you had a raceway close to Chicago, right?
I did, and I had a raceway here also.
Oh, here too.
Yeah, in Chicago we had a Worlds, and we had it for a number of years. Buf actually ran the raceway.
Okay.
As well as doing balancing for us and things like that, building motors. And
what was the name of the raceway in Chicago?
Koford Raceway. Of
Koford
course.
Raceway. I have Allen screwdriver wrench with the original from that place with your name, with the Koford, the black one, but with the name of the raceway on it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we had that, and then we moved from that location and decided to sell the track. We sold it to Scott Wright, So it was still in Chicago, and the last I heard it was in New Jersey. But
Okay. I thought it was the one that Mike Swiss has.
no,
No.
the one he has, he built himself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Mike used to work for you too, right?
Yes. He
Okay.
was my general manager.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we moved to Ohio, he had a girlfriend who he married, and she was based out of Chicago, so he didn't want to move. So.
Can't come, sir.
Yeah. So, but he has his raceway, and he buys from us, and he has some products. And actually, I went to his wedding.
Oh, good.
So,
Good to know. So today, where is the closest raceway that you have from here?
Oh my gosh!
We need to install a track here, man.
Because we did have a raceway here, but we sold the track to Port Jeff.
Okay.
So they have our track.
Which is a girding
Yeah.
link? Hmm?
Yeah. And similar to the one that is at Piranha Raceway.
So G12, G11, something.
No, it's I think ours is G20, something
20
like
already?
that. Yeah.
Alright.
So, but Gary isn't building King tracks right now, so
Yeah, so one of the
I
latest.
mean, there's plenty of them around, so there just hasn't been the demand, and
Yeah.
so he went down to a smaller size building where he can. I mean, he still goes out and works on tracks, and repairs them and upgrades them and things like that. And I think he built some smaller tracks.
Yeah, we recently Buena Park Raceway closed, and
Oh, he did? I didn't know that.
Yeah, in December,
Yeah.
and we acquired the tracks. We have the G8.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still in storage. We figure out what to do. Need a big footprint,
Yeah.
and as you know as you are from California, that's not cheap to have that thing lay out.
Oh, it's horribly expensive. Yeah. When Richard Rich Canute bought the track that was in Tennessee, it took him months and months and months to find a place. It's so difficult in Southern California. There's so much zoning and this and that, and
But the
we're
raceway,
happy to have you but we'll give you 2 parking spaces.
yeah, that's true.
And the rent is just fabulously expensive.
But his raceway is one of the best in the country. I think.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
People gather there.
Yeah.
They have the new flat track now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I went to the Nats, and all the parking spaces were full.
Oh yeah.
You
And
know.
he
you're
has a lot.
parking on the street, and everyone get tickets.
Shit. And he has a lot of parking spaces there. It's a big building.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But,
still, yeah. We have big races at our place, and luckily we have a good relationship with the city. So sometimes we can close the street. Sometimes we can just give it away for outdoor parking, street parking, so people can park. So, but we do have the problem. It's an issue everywhere, I think.
Yeah.
How do you see the new wave of the brushless motors? Are you guys trying to get into it? Are you planning to make brushless motors too?
No, we aren't. And as I mentioned, about 85% of our business actually is brushless motors, but larger size than what you see in the Slotcars, where they take some Taiwanese tail rotor helicopter motors and rewind them and modify them and such. People who are into that, buy their motor shafts from us and bearings and things like that. But no, we really don't want to get into rewinding some Chinese-made.
Yeah.
The company is from Taiwan, but they make it in China, and we really don't want to get into just rewinding something like that. And the size of the market isn't really sufficient to justify making it from scratch. So,
Is it something that you believe that might change in the future, or?
Possible, but I don't think so. I don't see wing racing changing to make that legal. They would have to change the rules, obviously, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's really any interest. And besides, I believe on wing cars that the type of motor they're using for Eurosport would be, well, I mean, people have tried it on King tracks, and it's slower than a box stock,
No.
the fastest brushless. So
Brushless, yeah.
it works for Eurosport because the straightaways are so short
Mm-hmm.
and the speed isn't very high.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think they'd ever be competitive for
For wing cars.
wing cars. Yeah.
That's a strong statement, coming from you especially.
Yeah, well, I mean, we make brushless motors, so we understand it, but the maximum RPM is much lower than a brush motor,
Yeah.
and that's an inherent limitation because of the number of poles and the commutation and such. So, could change, but
Good job.
I don't see that happening in the near future anyway.
Yeah, I think it's a change, which is something that we always need. But the adaptations so far is just too hardcore for to compete.
I think the selling point for brushless motors is that, well, they, you don't have to replace the motor brushes or true the com or whatever. But then I talk to guys who are running them, and they say, well, after each race you have to rebuild them because the bearings
The bearings are bad.
don't last more than a race and
So
things like
we
that.
get the same amount of work then.
Well, maybe not quite as much, but they still need quite a lot. So it's not like you don't have to touch them and you can run them for, years or something.
Yeah. Coming back a little bit from the 80s and 90s, I remember that the competition was kind of tough for you. You have Mura around, you have ProSlot. ProSlot's still strong, but ProSlot was kind of coming up. We had RJR. I remember it was
Yeah.
pretty popular. There's
Yeah.
many names that so Cayman,
Yeah.
they're doing it. And I remember at some point you guys start to innovate, cutting the armature, like doing cuts like this and doing cuts like that, and calling names that I don't know
Yeah.
who came up with. Intrepid.
I think it was mostly ProSlot who was doing that, kind of make it a little different and, get people to buy it. But
And there were so many new products. And then they have the degrees on the commentator, and they have like little writing on the.
that still is there.
Still is
People
there.
always want to. We at one time we had just a few standard chassis and a few standard arms, and everything was standardized, and you could make a whole bunch of something. And it's not that way anymore. Everyone wants their arms custom, and. We don't really make standard ones anymore because everyone wants, for, say, Group 27, they want a different diameter, they want a different timing.
Yeah.
Everyone wants, someone wants 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45.
That's different thing.
38,
42 and a
39,
half, please,
no one wants the same thing, so everyone's
I remember-
trying to...
I remember that slot car racing. I believe that you guys still do that, but for me it was so technical.
Yeah.
I could just the one that works here is the 42 with the whatever it is, and the Honda needs to be this one.
Yeah.
And then everybody's testing. Then next race somebody discovered that it was like one thing a little bit different, and he was faster than everybody else.
Yeah.
So I don't see that much nowadays.
Well, no, I think there still is a
Still
great
is?
deal. Still is a great deal because there's constantly new chassis designs, for example, and motors have changed significantly in terms of winds and things like that have changed, and the motors themselves have changed.
But you don't need to come up with many new products like you did to have to keep your company up when in the 80s and 90s. It was a big innovation time,
we
right?
might have 20 new part numbers in a year. So
Okay.
that's significant, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the same pace as before, or?
Well, it's not. The changes aren't as large as they were at some points in the past. Like when we first came out with the rare earth magnet motors, that everyone is running essentially box stock motors for open. So they made that a class, the CCAN class. So those are still produced and we make them. But yeah, there's still changes in magnets all the time.
Oh, the magnets are the big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that you make a lot of parts too. I need to appreciate because the axle is the most perfect axle in the market. So whatever we're racing, I'm trying to put a Koford axle in there. How is that part of parts developing?
Well, there's lots of changes there. We have the hollow, the drilled axle first, EDM drilled, and then we had the EDM drilled and wired, and that is stronger, even though it's lighter, because it has a finer finish on the inside, and because it's hardened material, if the inside isn't a polished surface, it breaks easier. So we've had that, and then we had the narrowed axle along with the narrow chassis and narrow body. So that's been an innovation in a lot of classes.
And everything is made here.
Yes.
Okay, produced here.
Yeah. Yeah. We have three EDM machines. We've got lathes, all sorts of lasers. So yeah, we basically make everything here.
That's very nice.
So there's a big innovation, rare earth magnet motors, and we were the first with the small can rare earth magnet motors. People before that were making them just to replace the magnets in a C-can, same dimensions, which was the wrong idea completely. And that didn't work very well. But then we made, with the stronger magnets, you can make much smaller motors.
Yes.
Because you don't really need more magnet strength, but with a stronger material, you can make the magnets much smaller. So that was a big innovation.
And then you guys start to cut the magnets and have like quads, 8, whatever it was.
30 mag.
30
28
mag.
mags, yeah.
30
40
mag.
mags, yeah.
Is it that? Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. So a bunch of things like that. But a bigger innovation was that when we started out, everyone was using Kirkwood comms. And Kirkwood is still around in Cleveland, Ohio. But as the motors got faster and the tracks got better, the Kirkwood comms wouldn't hold together. So we made an EDM comm, and so that was our innovation, and we've got the best comm, and that's why our motors dominate. One of the reasons. And we make our own epoxy for the arms, so that has higher strength at high temperatures than anything you can buy commercially. I mean, we produce the epoxy ourselves, and we make it here. So all those things are helpful, but back on the axles, the Eurosport guys, asked us to make axles, so we made those, and 2 millimeter axles, and then they asked us to make drilled ones, and then drilled 3/32 axles, but longer length for Eurosport. So we're making all those things. So, and then people are using our 2 millimeter flanged axle bearings as our motor bearings as axle bearings for Eurosport.
Oh, okay.
So, we're selling.
But the
into
bearings
that
are made
market.
here too?
No,
No.
we buy the bearings. Yeah.
Germany
Those are
probably, right?
made in Germany or Japan. Yeah.
It's very hard to find those quality ones because nowadays there's so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. Like the axles for me, axles for ball bearing axles. For axles are just like so hard to find a good one that you can trust and you can align, and takes a long time to put them together. It's not something easy to install perfectly.
Yeah.
And if you put if you try to save money there, just don't go, right.
Yeah, don't use the Chinese ones. They're cheap, but
and people are branding them as There's a lot of companies branding the Chinese ones. So
Yeah, well, you see axle bearings for $8 a pair.
something's
Don't
wrong.
expect them to last.
Something is wrong. Yeah. End of the race, your car is going sideways. You don't know what's going on.
I go down the straightaway and the balls might all fall out. So.
Oh, yeah. So there's a funny story about bearings. The company called GRW.
Yes.
So if you go to their website, they have a weird quote that says, "Proudly serving the country since 1941."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one of the biggest things about World War II, when we finally could get around it, was when they bombed that factory and they stopped the ball bearings. Yes.
Wow.
So without the ball bearings, they couldn't build anything.
Yeah.
And so basically, we were running slot cars on Hitler's balls.
Yeah. Well, that's a way to look at it.
Yeah, that's exactly factory was bombarded, and they stopped making stuff and kind of won the war there because they couldn't make any tanks or anything else.
Yeah.
And if you go to their website, it says proudly serving the country. It's like, well, weird quote. Okay, so we're running on Hitler's balls.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was with Kim at REH,
Okay.
and she asked me about my itinerary. I said, "Oh, I'm going to see Stuart Korford tomorrow." She said, "Oh, it's true?
Yeah.
Oh, he's the smartest guy. He's the smartest guy." I say, "What do you mean by that?" "Oh, he's the smartest." So she started talking about your NASA endeavors and space shuttle stuff and your Tesla stuff.
Yeah.
And then I ended the conversation saying, "Kim, if somebody ever asks about something about me, just go with that quote. Oh, he's the smartest guy. That's the only thing I want to know." So I got me curious. What about your NASA not only doing motors for arms and stuff like that, but what about your technical aspect of your work at NASA?
Well, they're a customer, the various NASA locations. We sell to all of them. But our typical NASA order is we need one motor for the mission, we need one for testing, and we need one spare.
Not a good customer.
That's it. Well, we sell to them, but the volume is low.
Google is a better customer than NASA.
Yeah, that's true. But we sell to the commercial spacecraft companies also, and various ones that say that we can't use their name and talking, but we sell to all the ones that you would know of, and we make motors that are used on the Learjet and commercial aircraft and business jets and drones, and we do a lot for scientific instruments of various sorts, national labs in the U.S. and in Germany and in Switzerland buy our motors. A lot of universities.
Are those motors similar to the ones that we race in slot cars?
No, they're all brushless.
Okay.
They're all brushless. Yeah.
No.
But they're bigger than slot car motors.
Okay.
Smallest one we make that's brushless is 16 millimeters in diameter.
Okay.
So, that's
quite bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, that's bigger. But we do make motors that'll go up to 300,000 RPM, brushless ones, which is.
What about the electronic part, the ESC?
We do make those. Yes, we do make drives. Yeah.
That's interesting. And with all this here, all this knowledge, you don't want to do slot car motors.
Well, brushless slot car motors, yeah. I mean, it's the only market to date is Eurosport, and I'm not sure what they're going to do as far as Group 12 unless they change the rules. Brushless wouldn't be legal. I haven't really heard anything about,
So it's about
what Israel is going to do. Or
it's more like a business decision than.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. But we're focused more on wing racing, and there's no brushless there, and
still, yeah.
it doesn't appear that there will be. 'Cause like I said, people have tried slot car brushless motors there, and
So I need
very
to
slow.
I need to communicate with the brushless people. He has the technology. He's right here. It's just a matter of get it popular again, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, the stuff that's made for like Israel racing is, people are rewinding an existing motor, and I don't really want to get into that.
Yeah, it's too much work.
But hey, I sell shafts that they use, and I sell, selling ball bearings and other stuff. So, those guys are buying that stuff from me.
So the way that I see, especially wing cars and even the Israel, whatever they call it, and all those groups, they're very closed. It's always the same people, and it's very hard to get new people in. Don't you agree?
Well, it's getting harder because usually, people get into racing because there's a local raceway, and they find out about it, or they just drive by and see it and check it out and start racing. And with there being a lot less raceways, particularly wing raceways, and that's tougher. So people that started when there was, 2,000 raceways in the U.S. or something, now they closest raceway is 100 miles away or 200 miles away, and they'll still come to the Nats or fly to the Nats, or they'll fly to Port Jeff or something and come to a Worlds. But it's tougher to get new people in. There are some new people, but they're coming in like people who live in Long Island, or Southern California where there's tracks, or Chicago or something. But outside of those areas, it's tougher to get new people in.
Yeah, but again, I feel like the group is just too exclusive. The technical level that the race is got into is not easy for somebody with 2 or 3 years of experience, like active experience, getting to that small group. And that small group has been repeating itself from 10 years or more.
Yeah, though it's possible to buy a complete car from Butte, for example, and go out there and buy a controller and go out there and race, starting in the slower classes ideally, because if you try to run a Group 7 car, it's really, you need some experience to do that.
Yeah, not only the money, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the car's so fast that you can hardly see it, so better to start with a slower car, like
the track record
Group
now,
12. And
the track record now is 1.2, 1.3?
Yeah, 1.2 something, yeah, for qualifying, yeah. But, people go 1.6, 1.7 in the race, generally, so. But, when there's 7 cars next to you, and
and it's
really tough.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. Like people
speed.
think, you don't need to take your finger out. Yeah, you need when you're sharing the corner or something. You need to stop. You need to drive. Qualifying is one thing, and drive you need to stop and go around.
Usually the gutters you need to blip, and if your car isn't working quite right, then you need to blip more. And if you're passing someone or there's traffic, and you need to let off and get and pass at the right point. Otherwise, you'll take yourself out and the other guy out.
And the car's done too.
Passing someone on the outside does not work well. So if you just hold the trigger down, you're going to be in the pits fixing your car.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
Sir, thank you very much again. It's very nice to be here and kind of see the operation going on. It's as I told you, something that has been in my mind since 30 years ago. And thank you very much for all the work you've been doing. Even I'm not a wing racer, but I use your products. I have your T-shirts. Once I sent you an email asking for a gold decal, and you sent me because I sent you $1, and you sent me back.
Yeah.
And I have this proudly on my box. And I think the work that you do here, it's not only important right now, but it has been essential for slot car racing here in America and in the world. And I really appreciate you opening your house and showing us and have your time to be with us here. It's very important for me to talk and know you better.
Thank you for having me.